In Afghanistan, a nation once known for strides in women's rights, the situation for women and girls has become increasingly dire since the Taliban's return to power in 2021. Decades of progress have been rolled back, leaving Afghan women under severe restrictions that limit their freedom, education, and participation in society. Recently, Afghan women leaders convened at the United Nations, calling for global intervention to restore their basic human rights. The international community, while vocal in its condemnation, faces an uphill battle as the Taliban continues to enforce its strict and oppressive policies. 100 years ago, Afghanistan granted women the right to vote ahead of many Western countries, including the United States. By the mid-20th century, Afghan women were attending schools, shedding traditional gender segregation, and playing an active role in public life. However, the Taliban's rise to power has reversed this progress, leaving women with little to no rights. Recently, Afghan women leaders gathered at the United Nations, urging the world to act. The summit, organized by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, shone a spotlight on the dire situation of Afghan women. Guterres spoke of the deep gender-based discrimination in Afghanistan and highlighted how the exclusion of women from education, employment, and leadership roles jeopardizes the country's future.
Without educated women, without women in employment, including in leadership roles, and without recognizing the rights and freedoms of one half of its population, Afghanistan will never take its rightful place on the global stage.
The event saw powerful voices calling for action, none more impactful than Hollywood actress Meryl Streep. She painted a grim picture of the current reality for Afghan women, making a comparison between the freedoms of animals and the harsh restrictions imposed on women by the Taliban.
Today, in Kabul, a female cat has more freedoms than a woman. A cat may go sit on her front stoop and feel the sun on her face. She may chase a squirrel into the park. A squirrel has more rights than a girl in Afghanistan today because the public parks have been closed to women and girls by the Taliban. A bird may sing in Kabul, but a girl may not, and a woman may not in public. This is extraordinary. This is a suppression of the natural law. This is odd.
Streep's comments came in the wake of new Taliban morality laws introduced last month. These laws codify the oppressive measures that have been in place since the group's return to power, including banning women from public spaces, prohibiting them from making eye contact with men, and forcing them to cover their entire bodies when in public. These laws are part of a larger vision of an austere Islamic society that the Taliban seeks to impose. Over the past 3 years, the Taliban has issued over 100 edicts that have systematically erased women from Afghan public life. Schools for girls remain closed, women are barred from working in most jobs, and even public parks and gyms are off limits. The Taliban's morality ministry now ensures that these harsh rules are strictly enforced across the country.
I feel that the Taliban, since they've issued over 100 edicts in Afghanistan, stripping women and girls of their education and employment, their freedom of expression and movement, they have effectively incarcerated half their population. And the international community, I believe, because the Taliban call themselves, I believe, Sunni, yes? The Sunni community has a special responsibility to, in some way, intervene on behalf of their women and girls. I feel that the international community as a whole, if they came together, could effect change in Afghanistan and stop the slow suffocation of an entire half the population who are incarcerated.
The Taliban's treatment of women is not just limited to curbing their social freedoms. Earlier this year, the regime reinstated the brutal punishment of stoning for adultery, evoking memories of their first reign of terror in the late 1990s. Such actions have drawn global condemnation, with many world leaders refusing to recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan, as long as their policies on women remain unchanged.